Sure it sound right, boys.
We're live. Royce, welcome to your show, The Bulk Truth.
Hi, Steve.
How are things going today?
It's a beautiful sunny day.
Yep. So today we're going to talk about you can't manage what you don't measure. We're going through a little backstory on Kadaro in our series and the creed. You can't manage what you don't measure. Tell me why that's important.
Yeah, so the reason it's really come to light is so many times it's hard to hold people accountable for what they can't see, what they can't measure. So, creating some level of measurement beyond the material itself. So to be fair to an employee, how would you hold somebody accountable for how they're performing or what their yields are if there's number one, no way to really know in real time and nothing they can do to have real time impact. And that seems to be the world that most people live in. And so that's really why we chose you can't manage what you don't measure, and seems to resonate with customers as they're looking to address that issue.
So all right. So Kadaro comes along and has a way to measure this product as this dry bulk material as it flows through chutes into containers, railroad cars, trucks, bags, etc. There's all these different use cases, and everybody's dealing with the same thing. They've had someone doing the best they can with what they've had to work with, and you guys have a way to identify this and then quantify it so that they have now another lever of in their business process that makes it accurate.
That's right.
We have an infographic that I wanted to share. And so the bulk truth creed. So let's kind of walk me through this. We got this guy over here. He's got his clipboard, and a lot of places really do run off of a clipboard.
That's correct. So in most cases, I mean, on the left, you have they're guessing at what's occurring. Sitting here thinking about, in most cases, just because you can't see it, so it's running, you know it's running, but you have no idea, how well is it running or exactly what's happening. And every day we get to the end of the day and we know the results are always the same, but what happened during that whole time period, right? At points where is it running really well and other points running really bad. And so, that's on the guest side of things as far as just creating that transparency, visibility, not at the end. Similar to this clipboard, I've had conversations with customers to understand, how do you measure performance today? And in some cases, accounting brings the number. Here's what you should have. Here's what we're showing you processed. Where does that number come from? How does it get reconciled? And is it right?
So this manual input, when we think about this, what's at risk when this is wrong, when it's off?
Ultimately, could be the bottom line. When it's off, it could be in your favor. So if it's off and it's in your favor, then and possibly your customer, right, is it at their expense or vice versa, in their favor at your expense. And so if a person's looking to be accurate and fair, there's a variable there that may need addressed.
So this is adding a layer of confidence on what you're doing. I mean, that's a great point. Normally, I'm thinking they want to be profitable and they want to collect what they are supposed to do. But the other side of the shoe there is the customer is overpaying or undergetting.
Yeah, I tend to hear a lot about margins, right? I mean, it's as margins get tighter and tighter, things get more and more competitive. The lack of this visibility really creates a competitive disadvantage if you don't have something in place.
And then we're introducing rework, and what's that? We always have time to do it the second time, right?
Yeah, I every day in my mind it's almost measure twice, cut once.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how many times that keeps coming to mind for other things, but it seems accurate here as well.
But then on this graph on the bottom left here, it leads to equipment wear, overloading fines, and invisible yield loss that we talked about. There's a lot of things that are it's impacting a lot of, I call them invisible taxes, or yeah, lack of process taxes, and I imagine that list is even longer.
Yeah, I think it gets extremely long. And I mean, I was thinking about the human side of it as well. So typically somebody's doing this manually, and so just the cost of that time. So I hear a lot about labor, hard to find, hard to find labor, hard to keep labor. But the labor that we have, that's such a precious resource, how are we potentially wasting it for things that, it could be used for higher value, or in creating more efficiency, or more profitability.
Then there's the human cost on there that you're mentioning. I've been in positions to where I wanted to do a good job, but I didn't have the tools, and it was frustrating, and it put me in a frame of mind that you spend a lot of your life doing a job and you want to be good at it, or I did, at least wanted it to be fulfilling. But then when you're not equipped to do the best job, and then you're held accountable on top of that, off a moving target, that doesn't feel fair.
Correct. Yeah, I was giving that thought as well. I mean, just the fact that you have to wait to the end to know what happened, and then at that point, there's really nothing you can do about it. And so, number one, is there a good means of measuring at all? And then is there a way to measure that the employee could take an action, right? And to feel good about how good a job they're doing. Without that visibility, transparency of operations, how would an employee feel good about the day? Hey, I did so much better than yesterday, or last year at this same time. Or wait a second, something's happening, right? I'm doing everything on my end, but my equipment's wearing out, right? Look at what's happening. We're not getting as good a throughput, or as good a yield. I think there could be potentially a lot of pride as far as the visibility that's coming to light, and what employees could use to really support their efforts, and how good a job they're performing.
And then sending the bill later, guessing sends the bill later. So there's this your collections are in arrears, and that adds up over a year, over several years. Your revenue you could have received sooner is delayed, and that's one of the big factors of improving a business process, is getting that dialed in.
I really like how it framed it. Assumptions feel cheap. I mean, guessing, it is cheap, so it doesn't cost you a lot to guess, but the true cost comes at the end. And so I think that's a fair statement, and really that's what we're competing with. So as you look at, bringing solutions to, and creating transparency, relative to, maybe they're not spending anything today to create that guess, right? They feel like they're not. The true cost is the opportunity cost of performance, and it's significant relative to what that little cost of time would have been.
And then, so it's like it's always a surprise at the end where we're landing, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to frame that. I wonder how many managers are like having a surprise at the end.
Yeah, could be good, but it could be bad. But we don't know.
Well, and how do you know if it's good or bad?
Oh, there you go. So all this time you could have thought it was good, but actually it's been hurting the company, it's been hurting the customer, and really hurting the employee who's that we're assuming wants to do the best job and is engaged. This isn't hurting them as well.
Sure.
Interesting. So now Cadaro comes in with a particular apparatus and a process and software. So let's talk about that, and then we can look at the transformation that happens.
Yeah, so really that great divide between the guest and the managed is just having a consistent means of measuring, right? Something that a measurement you could have confidence in. And we use that slogan, manage with confidence or measure with confidence. And so that with our flow sensors, regardless of the material, so if it's dry bulk material, it'll gravity feed, right? We're going to feed it through one of our devices, so vertical inclines, but we're going to know the actual flow rate at any given moment. We'll be able to provide a total weight, and then from there we start having actionable impact. And so if things need to be adjusted slightly, we can make those adjustments. But we create that visibility to performance, and then ultimately, the ideal situation is we start automating some of these manual processes. So where people were physically being required to watch, observe, to do things, now they move to a state of just monitoring the operations and making adjustments, right? But it's based on their knowledge and experience. But over time, then they can start finding ways to even utilize AI to automate that, to where then their time is being used in other tasks.
And again, we mentioned this in the last episode, and it didn't really sink into me, but generally this employee that's responsible, this human factor is there. It requires them to be in a dusty, loud environment that's outside, and so subject to all the weather. So that's another wear, and I'm imagining you're helping them now be able to sit in an air-conditioned environment that's quiet and calm and monitoring, rather than being out and getting dirty, hot, frustrated.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a safety aspect for sure, right? Moving people away from having to climb up ladders to monitor a process, to check a bin, right? To just visually watch something that's going on, which puts them out not only climbing ladders, but out into that environment, moving them to a control room to monitor the process, and then just the worker satisfaction. Yeah, how many people really appreciate if you're in the sub-zero weather in the north in the wintertime, doing some of these tasks versus actually sitting in the office with a cup of coffee and still monitoring with a camera and seeing what's going on and making adjustments. And you still may have to go out, but you're going to address a problem, right? And so I would assume that, just the worker satisfaction, as far as what they're doing and what their satisfaction in their job, right? So it's hard to find people, but then, put them in a work environment that they want to continue to perform and excel in.
And this is something that someone could step in and pretty much pick up right away.
I think that's the big piece. It's repeatable. So regardless of who's monitoring or who's part of the process, we've taken the human element out. We've heard examples of where they are taking a physical inventory, right? They may be using a tape measure, but how they're measuring, right, to a pile could be different, one person to the next. So it's always been very important that using the same person every time. Otherwise, you start getting different results. It's the same tape measure. It's the same pile. How can you get a different number? And I can see how it can happen, and it does quite regularly. And so we're helping address that, and not only does it simplify, but it makes it very consistent.
I'm thinking of my house, and water comes into my house, and it's measured, I'm assuming, accurately, so that they can bill me. They bill me regardless, right? But same with gas. But then in this case, now we have dry bulk material that's rolling and going, not through a controlled pipe, and you guys are introducing a way to measure this area that hasn't been mastered, like gas or water.
Correct. That's accurate. And having the ability to put this technology, I mean, the fact that it cuts and flanges into a very small space, attaches to an existing pipe or chute, similar to what your examples of whether it be gas or liquids, it's ultimately it's affixed to a pipe, right? Materials passing through that, it's measuring it as it passes. Really the same for what we do. And granted, you have to calibrate, and there may be occasional times that something went awry, right? But by and large, you build the confidence up that people move on to other things. And we've seen that with some of our customers where they're previously they were very focused on this as a task or a person for a job. Now, I mean, it's when you ask the question, how things going? I mean, sometimes the response is must be going good because I haven't heard about it, right? So no one's, it's not, I've got a whole list of problems. That's not one of my problems. It used to be, but it's not today.
I'm thinking about scalability. Let's say you wanted to scale this. It means that you need this person who has this unique knack of guessing better than most. That would be hard to identify and to place it. So therefore, it feels like a limiting factor to scaling better business processes.
I think that's for sure. I mean, that person, whatever, they can only visually watch or monitor so many things manually. And so even if they're really good, or what else is not getting done, whenever they're doing that task. And to the point of scalability, having one person in a certain area of a plant versus really needing that same level of performance throughout the plant, and ideally still using the one person. And so they still may be monitoring, but now you talk about scalability, and typically with these sensors, you put in the first one, once they get confidence in what it does, then they start identifying other times along the process. They want to measure flow. They want to know what went into a piece of equipment, or after the process, what came out of the piece of equipment, so they can see what the yield is and then make fine adjustments. If they want to troubleshoot a piece of equipment where they can start seeing slippage or start seeing wear, because then they can start seeing, hey, my yields are falling off. Why? And so they go back, they pinpointed exactly where through that whole process something's occurred that's not normal. And again, you had to have the measurements to have a baseline of normal.
You've got managed data-driven reality here. You're not bringing in a system that's unique. This would be there would be other processes internally in that organization, be it accounting, be it I don't know, moving data in other areas, that a version of this already exists, and now you're offering them to be more comprehensive or holistic.
I think each customer is unique where they are on this journey. So you can think of somebody that has really no automation. I mean, they may not have PLCs. They may not be very sophisticated in the facility. And then you could think to the other extreme, somebody that's extremely sophisticated, right? They've got a lot of automation and equipment, but this could be the missing piece to that whole equation. And so we fit in on both spectrums. For the person that's very sophisticated, we can create that visibility that then they understand what's going on faster and they can make those adjustments, but it's integrating into what they already have. So it doesn't have to be a whole new system, but the same product, same control, same software can go to a site that has no automation, and instantly they can be up and running. And then all of a sudden they can automate to the gate. They can hit start on the controls, and it says, hey, I want 50,000 pounds. Start. The gate opens. 50,000 pounds. The gate shuts. And so that was somebody that didn't have that capability at all. And we have customers in both areas.
So when you talk to folks afterwards, after this is implemented, what are some of the comments that you're getting that we haven't really discussed yet?
I think what we hear quite often is the first one, people are skeptical. So they're I believe you, but when I see it, I'll really believe you. And so once they get the first one in, and that's part of our process is get the first, prove it, so they can prove it in, and then they can justify the investment in, to themselves or to their management team. And then they have internal data and information to scale, this type of technology. And then they start looking for the other places that they can, create greater efficiency. So that's a normal response for us. And it gives us satisfaction as far as them coming back and saying, okay, now we need to look at these other steps in our process and how can you help us, identify what's going here and integrating this into where we have a broader view.
Give me a sense of like, there's an investment obviously for one of your units and your software that you're putting in, but what are some of, give me a sense of the payoff, how quickly can they recoup their investment, and what are you opening up as far as improved, I guess it's, my first mind goes to, all right, the unit cost me X and then my sales were Y, but then there's the unmeasured thing of employee time, wear and tear on equipment, these other items. I'm curious, and it must be significant.
Yeah, some of it depends, obviously on the products that you're handling and your processes. And so there's several ways. There's a cost driven value. And so, cost being time, labor, things that we're potentially creating greater efficiency around. And so part of the value proposition is in that area. We mentioned safety, right? So, the safety factor as far as, less up times up and down a ladder, things of that nature, there's that can be estimated or calculated. On the output side, as far as dialing in and improving yields, obviously, removing yield losses pretty instant as far as what that value could be. And, depending on are you handling a commoditized bulk commodity, or are you looking at something that's higher value? Definitely each pound handled to be different. And so each operation is different. But what we've determined is there's a way, regardless of the industry that you're in, the material that you're handling, we have a subscription only model that is a known cost. And so it's easy to calculate, okay, my cost is X. So you can put that across the whole year's worth of production, and that's the fastest ROI. So you're looking at an OPEX expense versus a CAPEX expense. So you can write that off, but it's year to year. And so, and it's an easy way to get into this type of technology because it's a known expense. So you go into it knowing exactly what it's going to cost you out of pocket, but ultimately what you experience is all the value and the different ways that it creates value for your operation across the 12-month period. And then you start deciding, what's best for my operations is doing a subscription, or in most cases, a lot of customers and organizations they like CapEx. They want to own it, and that works as well, right? But paybacks could be slightly different. If you're moving, if you're operating 365 24/7 and you're putting through 200 million bushels of corn, paybacks are going to be pretty significant. But if you're other smaller operations that maybe you're only handling a 500,000 bushels of corn, that comes into the equation. That's why it's important to look at both routes as far as the value it's created. We have on our online or on our website, codaro.com, there's an ROI calculator. And so a customer can look at their own numbers. There's some base numbers in there from feedback we've had from other customers on what they've given for scenarios. And it's been a useful tool, especially as an operator. They know what the problem is that they're trying to fix, but then they have to go build the business case. And usually that's not what they're accustomed to doing. So building, what is the return on investment? What's the business case to take for a CapEx budget proposal, et cetera? It'll help them through that process.
So in this discussion is going through my head, would you describe Codaro, would you say Codaro is a technology company or an equipment company?
I'd say definitely technology.
Yep.
The flow sensor itself, the hardware is a key. It doesn't work without that, but the magic is really the controls, the software, the algorithm, and the advancements we continue to make is more on that side. And it's based on the interaction with customers. So typically once they see we've addressed problem number one, then they also provide us a list of the other things that they would like to be able to do with the technology, and those things get integrated in on the software side.
Awesome. So you got a conference coming up?
We do. We're going to be at the Grain Elevator and Processing Exchange, Jeeps Exchange 2026 here in about 2 weeks. I think I leave for Kansas City on the 19th, move in on the 20th. and show, I believe, starts the 21st, 22nd. So
Nice.
Monday, Tuesday.
So you'll be doing a presentation?
We will. So we'll actually be launching a new product series in the new Idea Exchange on Sunday morning. We'll have a booth on the floor Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and we'll do a innovation station, I believe, Monday afternoon out on the floor of the show. So we'll be talking more about the new technology that we'll be launching, and then similar to this, we'll be having live conversations on the floor as far as, you know, some of the ways that people are guesstimating or estimating today, and how we can potentially move that to an automated process.
All right, awesome. So if somebody's been listening, they want to talk to you, they see maybe what your situation, your solution would look in their situation. What's the best way to connect with you?
Sure. Email is probably the best. So the royce.schulte@kadaro.com. If they just want to send an email, we can set up a session, a Teams meeting that we can discuss their project or their challenges that they're trying to address, and explore what options might fit for them.
All right. And they can also reach out to you on LinkedIn. You have a custom link there, linkedin.com. Royce Schulte. Easy name. Good conversation, Royce. Any last message before we wrap it up?
No, stay tuned for the new product launch here later this month. And if you're in Jeeps, come stop by the booth and have a conversation.
All right, Royce, good job. So another episode of The Bulk Truth. You can't manage what you don't measure. And we'll see everyone on the next episode. And that's a wrap.